So this has been a review of certain lessons about grooming. Remember, by way of recap, first, you can't tell a predator from a non-predator, and most of the grooming behaviors meant to build trust, to have people let their guards down. Most of those behaviors are things that normal people would do, especially in the capacity of a bishop. But when it gets to the point where the predator is meeting one-on-one and starting to normalize sexual conversation or touch, even if it's done with religious themes such as repentance or the law of chastity, those cross a boundary that is very dangerous. So we talked about not being able to tell the difference. We talked about the stages of grooming, which include selection of a victim. It includes gaining access to the child. It includes emotional recruiting or building trust both with the child as well as with the parents so that it normalizes one-on-one private access. It involves desensitizing the victims by introducing sexual themes of conversation, which can include religious sexual themes involving repentance or the law of chastity. It can involve inappropriate touch and desensitization in that regard. And the only way that you can tell the difference is after the abuse has actually been done. These are all red flag behaviors that institutions should have policies in place, because what you don't want to have is you don't want to have a scenario where all of these things that a predator would normally have to overcome in order to gain access to a victim, all of those steps that we just talked about, if your institution normalizes sexual conversation in private, then it takes all of these obstacles away and it just clears the way for the predator to do what would normally take a lot longer to do and have more obstacles to it. And then finally, acknowledge that if you look at two different children, one child in an institution which normalizes private meetings with priesthood leaders, normalizes sexual conversation, then that child is left unprotected because predators can do what they do without it raising any red flags. Where if you look at another child who's an institution that the culture has been changed because they are taught regularly that those types of interactions cross boundaries of appropriate behavior, then those children are more likely to tell when the early stages of grooming, those early inappropriate boundaries are crossed, and the parents will be able to identify better when those boundaries are crossed, because they'll be able to see that a leader should not be one-on-one, or that conversation should not include sexual themes. I just want to make sure that people understand the importance of learning from the research on grooming and predatory behavior so we can see how that knowledge affects the way that we design policies and procedures for our institutions.